welcome, folks, to another edition of RSF Radio. I'm your host, Joe Monday, and this is the podcast where we talk about what's been going on with the front page of our Street Fighter. Today is February 1st. Oh, happy Black History Month, by the way. Cool, episode 22. And we can dig into it, but I just gotta let you guys know that we are living in the best timeline for fighting games. There are so many good fighting games right now. Dragon Ball FighterZ came out, and it's a fun game, but I have a confession to make. That I don't think people will believe when I say it out loud with my mouth, but I'm not in love with Android 16. He seems like a character that I should love. He's the pretty much de facto grappler of that cast. He dunks. He's the Air Jordan of the cast. I love that character in that story. I love grapplers. But I can't dig him in that game. And I feel bad for it. I feel bad on the inside. It hurts. I don't like admitting that. So maybe if there's like some hot Android 16 tech that I just haven't figured out, or maybe I'm not using the correct assists, please let me know. Be sure to light up my timeline with that, because I want to love Android 16, but he might not be the right. He's a bad boy. He's not. I need a good boy. I need a good boy like Vegeta. All right, folks. Enough about me and Dragon Ball FighterZ, because this is the podcast where we talk about Street Fighter stuff and the front page of our Street Fighter. So let's actually dig into it. One of the most, what's the biggest tournament this year so far? Yeah, the first major big tournament this year was Evo Japan. Just happened. And congratulations to, everyone who went out there from the U.S. or anyone who traveled out there to actually go see this event, because it was a pretty dope event. It was smaller in scale from Evo, what they're calling Evo World now, which is the one that takes place in Las Vegas. But there was tons of really good competition there, and we got to see some names from Japanese players who don't travel as much or get overseas as much or compete in the Evo World Tournament, as it would be. So this ended up being a very high-skilled tournament with a lot of really great players. I want to give a congratulations to Infiltration, who took first place in a really gripping winners finals into grand finals against John Takeuchi, who that young Rashid. Oh my goodness, does he look like a young Daigo? If you put a picture of those two, current John Takeuchi and a young Daigo, next to each other. Speaking of Daigo, he got third. If you put them next to each other, it is hard to discern the who's who. But we saw some awesome Juri and Minatek from Infiltration, so expect them to be nerfed in Season 4. No, I don't expect that to happen. But we'll see how things shake out. I do not think that they are top tier characters, but the way that Infiltration played, being able to switch up between, and not even just with these characters, but in the midst of battle, switch between high speed offense and then zoning, and on a dime switch. I've talked about this before. I don't know if I talked about this before in this podcast, but definitely during our Street Fighter tournaments is when you can change your pitch up that fast, it often catches your opponent off guard, and reading the situation like that is really what Infiltration excelled at in this tournament, and has excelled at in the past. He's a very strong player in general, but just this was a very good example, because it is pretty painted black and white in terms of when it is go time and when it is I'll stand back and wait. Here's the rope. So it was a fun tournament. It was good stuff. I knew that these Cup Noodle commercials existed, but oh boy, are they stole the show, in my opinion. I think there's is it a I'm trying to think of what story it was. Someone covered this, of the Cup Noodle saga of look up the Cup Noodle saga. There's a good story told between, and like that is self-referential of Cup Noodle. It's good stuff. Their commercials are top tier. More top tier than any character in Street Fighter V. That's for damn sure. Okay, next up on the docket. By the way, if you haven't watched any of Evo Japan, take a look at this thread. It lists out all of the competitors, but more so than that, something that a lot of people thought was really cool is listed the number of people who played a certain character in top 64. Basically, top 64 character count. And specifically interesting on this list, there's no Laura, there's no Ken, no Zeku, no Alex, and no Ed. I actually think Ed's pretty good. Alex is probably higher on the tier list, but a lot of people think Laura's pretty high on the tier list, at least on this side of the state. So maybe we'll see how that might shake out at Evo World this year. It's fun saying that. It's just funny how competitions in America have taken the world title. Like when people win the Super Bowl, which is... Fuck, that's this Sunday, isn't it? When people win they're the world champions of American football, but they don't call it American football because we don't call soccer. It's soccer. Anyway, moving on though, check out this thread. This is a lot of good information to dig into here, and check out the VODs. They're all on YouTube now, and you can check out the full bracket here. All right. Next thing I want to talk about, if you want more of this tournament coverage, there's also a really good podcast, which is the SF5 podcast with Justin Shade. This goes up, I believe, every week, if not every other week. But give them a follow on YouTube. Follow them on your podcast feed. That's the SF5 podcast. And in this week, they talk about tier lists, which we were just talking about, and they talked about Evo Japan. It's good conversation every week. They make a lot of references to the sub as well, but all of their conversation is Street Fighter V based. So that if you find yourself skipping through this podcast when we talk about Street Fighter V, then maybe this isn't for you. But at the same time, it's a good podcast. Really good guys. Insightful discussion. Smart topics. And I just want to give them a quick little shout out. Typically, they cut their content to around 45 minutes to an hour, and it's good stuff every week. So, highly. And the audio quality is very good as well. Like, Game Respect Game, good shit. Justin Shade. I'll give you the thumbs up on that. Well played. All right. Moving on to the next topic, another shout out to the Weekly Roundhouse. This is a newer thing presented by Double Tap. They also talk about the Evo Japan recap, and it's another one of those like recap video channels that I think probably deserves a little more attention than it's getting. I've seen it on the sub a couple times now, and I want to give these guys a little airtime. I think it's definitely worth a watch, and the audio-visual quality is up there, and don't really disagree with much of what the dude's saying. It's good stuff. It's more of short little bites. So if Justin Shade and the Street Fighter V podcast is a whole meal, this is like the appetizer, if you will, and it's worth a watch, worth a listen. All right, moving on to other stuff. So if you remember last week, we talked about how Capcom took away a lot of they cut the fight money earnings. They shot themselves in the foot. We talked about that. They took away all these reasons or ways to earn fight money with survival mode and all that stuff. And then in the missions, they cut that fight money in half. Well, guess what? This week they decided, we got a little. You guys noticed, didn't you? We're gonna up these numbers. Well, those are rookie numbers before. We got to get some pro level numbers. So they've upped the fight money that you can earn back to what it originally was from the weekly missions. I just think that's funny. I'm glad that they did it. Like I don't know. This is like a laughable situation where like it shouldn't have decreased it in any way beforehand because they've already really kneecapped the ways to earn fight money in Street Fighter V. But then to cut this in half. But then, hey, they made good on it this week. They thought we wouldn't notice, but we got eyes on you. Cap cops are being watched. Anyway, folks, moving on to the next topic. So something that I've seen a lot of people talk about in the tech world is there's not a ton of information out there, frame data wise, for Season 3 of Street Fighter V. And in fact, a lot of people's medias have changed because timing on frame kills have changed. If your normals have gotten extra recovery frames on whiff, pushback has changed on throws. There's a whole mess of business what's been changed about Street Fighter V. So like, how do you, if you just want to science it, how do you science it? And this is a really great tutorial on how to figure out your media setups in Street Fighter V using tool assisted. Now, if you've never, I understand, if you've never used tool assisted before, if you've never, well, not even that. I feel like if you're a normal human being and you take a look at tool assisted and the information that you are presented outright as a normal human being, you would look at it and go, oh, this is just a mess of numbers. I don't understand any of this. Even if you understand frame data, even if you consider yourself, oh yeah, I totally get it, like that all makes sense. You look at this program and you just go, ooh, why is it listed out like this? This is not friendly to a human being. But tool assist doesn't need to make it friendly to a human being because everybody knows tool assisted's a robot. So who is it that wrote this, actually? Did they sign it? No, they didn't. I wonder if this was Tool Assisted himself. Okay, regardless, this is a tutorial on how to use Tool Assisted and how to use the Oki calculator. Recommend reading through this if this is something that you care about, if you want to dig into tech, if you want to use this tool in your arsenal when it comes to discovering tech and discovering things about your character and other characters. Tool Assisted is a extremely useful tool for figuring out stuff in fighting in Street Fighter V. So highly recommend checking that out. And this makes it palatable. When you read through this and learn how to use the system, it then can become palatable. You can see within the matrix. You can be like Neo and see, oh, that's a Ryu stand hard kick. And not just a jumble of numbers. That's a blonde, redhead, and a brunette. That's a quote from The Matrix. Anyway, for the tech heads out there, recommend digging into this. This is good stuff. Good information. All right, a little sad note here, but perhaps a happy note, depending on who picks them up. But both GamerBee and Oil King are free agents now. They have been dropped by Zowie. So that's a little bit unfortunate, but they're both very strong players who have done exceedingly well. Maybe not exceedingly well over the last year, but like pretty darn well in terms of the global ranks of things. They're both very strong players in general, and I am interested in seeing how this shakes out for the both of them. I really want to see where GamerBee goes in this situation, mostly because he had like a job, he's got his wife. Are things, is he going to make a career turn? He hasn't made any announcements like that recently, but I don't know. That's kind of up in the air right now. Maybe he's going to listen to some of what Nemo has to say about that, which we'll get into later. Not that he's like going to retire or anything. I don't want to put that. I don't want to spread rumors. I just want to. I think it's interesting, and I think that he deserves to be picked up by a strong team. And so does Oil King. They're both very strong players, worthy of joining any team that wants to pick them up. Speaking of people getting picked up, Brian F., congratulations for being picked up by UYU. Uyu? Do you say it out loud or do you just pronounce the letters? I don't know at this point. Regardless, I can't think of anyone who is more deserving of sponsorship. Brian F. is one of the leading minds in getting more people to think critically about their gameplay versus what work they're putting in. Balrog got nerfed, so he can't. He's gonna have to put in the work. The thing is, something I love about Brian F. is that he has a whole series of YouTube videos dedicated to teaching people how to bust up Balrog's mix-ups. He shows you how to do it, and he does it with full explanation, and yet still people cried about it. And he's a gentleman and a scholar, and when he looks at that, he says, "No, this is bullshit. Put in the work, figure out how to beat your opponent, and just do it. Don't cry about it." And he's gonna stick. I think he's gonna stick with Balrog. He hasn't made any announcements if he's gonna change character, so he's gonna put in the work. So I expect to see Brian F show up in a lot of top 16s, top 8s, maybe some first places in the Capcom Pro Tour this year. Very excited to see where this takes him. And again, couldn't go to a nicer guy. So congratulations to Brian F for being sponsored by UYU or UU. I don't know. Another thing that is actually, it wasn't posted the sub, but I did see this earlier. Just want to give a congratulations to Mama Dow. She accepted a position at Capcom. I don't think she has announced what exactly her position is or what it will be, but I just want to throw out a general congratulations to her. She's a friend of the sub, and also the co-creator of, or co-owner of, Combo Queens. If you are a woman in the FGC, I would 100% recommend getting on board with everything the Combo Queens is doing. That whole team of people is fantastic. Very supportive team. Follow them on Twitter. Give them shout outs when you can. It is a good grassroots organization. I love it. Love everything she does, and she deserves I think, well, maybe not that Mama Dow deserves the position, but I think that in a position at Capcom, I think that she will do a good job. She's real people. She's good people. So I just want to give a congratulations there. And again, that's not posted to the sub yet, or I don't know if it will be posted to the sub, so there won't be a link to that, but I just want to give a heart to Mama Dow. Okay, moving on. Something that came up, I think this was really first announced a year ago, that Momochi was building a team from Momochi and Chocoblanca's Shinobism. And if you don't know what that is, it is basically a dojo for... Dojo? What do you call a place where ninjas train? Is it a dojo, or is it just like a secret ninja hideout? Or is there a specific word for that? Sorry for my ignorance. I've just never thought of what you would call a training facility for ninjas. Except for what do they call it in that one James Bond movie? Anyway, not important. But Momochi and Chocoblanca's Shinobism, they were building a team. They were training people up and teaching them how to be very strong players and competitors. And it was just recently announced that they're going to have a team called Fudo. 5 members. 5 members? Does it say 5 members, or did I imagine that? No, it doesn't say how many members of this Street Fighter V team. I think I've imparted that because it's Street Fighter V, but when they said it, they used the number 5 and not a V, so that really threw me off. So their team, Fudo, have been decided already, but will be announced in March. No idea why that might be. Maybe it has something to do with that documentary that's coming out that we talked about a couple weeks ago, which covers Momochi and Chocoblanca's trials and tribulations in training up these people and starting this Shinobism, all this Shinobism business. But what I will say, let's harken back to about a year ago, where this Shinobism, Momochi's Shinobism, brought over 3 people from their team. It wasn't a team yet, but from that training group to Evo World. And it was Yamaguchi, who was a Ken player, Johnny, who was a Karen player, and Haku and Bison. Will they be this Fudo team? Or will it be a whole new cast of characters? I don't know. We'll all have to wait with bated breath for March to see what's happening there. But interesting stuff. If you want to look at maybe those, maybe try and Google their names. Maybe for Johnny, Google Shinobism Johnny. Karen, see if anything comes up that's pretty general name. The other ones might come up with something, but regardless, just a little nugget of information that might pay off in a month. We're a month away from that. It is February now. I remember that because I said that at the top of the show. Anyway, moving on to the next topic. Let's get through it. Speaking of training people, here is a great article by XTopDoll on Twitter, Virginia Glaze, on the website Jinx Esports TV. That's something I haven't heard of, but it was posted to the sub. What it's like to teach Street Fighter for a living. This actually goes down, breaks down a couple of different, covers a couple different people, mostly Broly Legs. Also talks about Justin Wong, Cross Counter TV and what they're doing with their training programs. It's some interesting insight into the life of what it would be like to train people in Street Fighter or fighting games for a living, or at least as supplementary income to what you already do. And also, if you find yourself in a position of, I need to be trained, there's a ton of information here on where to find training. Because not only is it just something that I actually found really interesting and very nice, is that they don't only just call out pay services like cross-counter training or like Broly Legs and stuff. They also call out New Challenger. They give a shout out to New Challenger. I think that's cool, which is the New Challenger Discord. I don't know if I ever talked about them on this podcast. I must have at some point, but it's a whole Discord dedicated to training new players, teaching them how to play. Here they talk about also Momochi and Choco Blanca with... Why am I fucking up Choco Blanca's name? It's just not rolling out off the tongue. I don't know why. I can't. I'm having so much trouble tripping up over it. Can't say it correctly. Choco Blanca. Anyway, enough of my vocal training. But they talk about that here in this article as well. So I want to give another shout out to... Just read the whole thing if you want to A, get into training, or B, want to be trained. There's a whole bunch of information here. A whole lot of points of views that, if you are in the training mindset, that would be beneficial for you to dig into. So I just want to give a shout out to, again, second time we've brought up an article from Virginia Glaze here. That's at XTopDoll on Twitter, and the O's are zeros, of course, because internet. Okay. All right, let's get into some tech talk. People were wondering and thinking about, because we didn't really see a whole lot of V-Trigger 2 combos pulled off in Evo Japan. But here's some fun bullshit put together by Izumojinx on YouTube. Man, sometimes names are so difficult. Work on your branding, folks. At Izumojinx on YouTube, some like fun desk-like videos for a bunch of different characters, and seeing what their V-Trigger 2s are like. I'm doing air quotes right now, capable of, because you're not going to see this in real match, but this is just like some fun, funky bullshit that I can get behind as someone who likes kind of ridiculous combo videos. So this is some good stuff. And again, this is from Izumojinx on YouTube. So check out that video if you want to see some hot Street Fighter V bullshit. And speaking of Street Fighter V bullshit, there also happen to be certain glitches with Street Fighter V Arcade Edition, as it turns out. Surprise, surprise. This one's pretty interesting. It is Minot's V-Trigger 2. So how this works is that when you pop her V-Trigger 2, she now gains access to... The way that her release works for this is basically quarter circle motion and then a button, and that sends out the orbs in a predetermined fashion in V-Trigger 2. What someone found out on YouTube, which is... Oh, this is just posted to Event Hubs? Okay. Or did someone send this into Event Hubs? That might be the case. Regardless. The situation is, once you pop V-Trigger 2, if you hold down an activation, like medium punch, you hold down medium punch. You're holding medium punch down. You do a quarter circle back. still holding on to medium punch. The game thinks that you've done that quarter circle back motion and have pressed or released medium punch, even though you have not. And it will activate that orb configuration. It will send out the orbs in that predetermined configuration as if you have either pressed or released medium punch, because negative edge. But that's not the case, because you're still holding it. You're just holding onto the button. You can test this out in training mode, and it's funky. It's weird. Doesn't look like it, or doesn't feel like this should be how it works, because this is literally how no other activation works in the game. I don't know if it's because Monot's weird, or I really don't know how or why this bug is a thing that occurs. There's also, and it wasn't posted to the sub, but I saw we'd talk about this on Twitter. Zangief V-Trigger 2 bug with Stand Hard Punch. The activation windows are a little bit funky. So check that one out. But also another bug in video format. Posted to Twitter though. Jury, her V-Trigger 2. If you activate her V-Trigger 2, which is the meter draining V-Trigger, sucks meter from her opponent and also draws them in on hit and block. If you activate it and she gets hit during the activation, she loses all her V-meter. That's it. Like, one quick burn if you are hit in those activation frames at all, which I can't imagine is how that is intended to work. So there's another V-Trigger bug. And if you have found any other bugs in Street Fighter V, post them to the sub. Let people know. Shout out at Street Fighter on Twitter, because this is information that. Oh, and also speaking of bugs, we didn't talk about the biggest one, perhaps. Like, these are bugs that we'll just wash over these bugs. They don't really affect gameplay, but how about this one that does affect gameplay is Urian's V-Trigger 2. Now, you don't know what it is. Talked about this touched on this, is that when Urian does his V-Trigger 2, if he absorbs a hit in that situation, on recovery, he has no hurt box. So basically fully invincible at that point. It's not really a huge exploitable bug. I can't really think of this ever practically coming into effect in a real match, or like having any major outcome on how any game goes. I can't. For the most part, Urians are choosing V-Trigger 1 anyway for the mix-up. I get it. It's generally accepted as the better V-Trigger. I can see arguments for V-Trigger 2 in terms of damaging core and carry. I get it. That's fine too. But the mix-up potential of V-Trigger 1 is still, even though they've reduced kind of all the damage that it does, and with activation you get that extra 20% scaling. Regardless of all that, a lot of Urians are saying, I want V-Trigger 1. However, something that Gfinity and the name of the series correct, the Challenger series, I believe is the name of it. This is their type of, the Challenger series is their like big tournament thing, right? And they just said, oh, there's a slight bug where Urian is fully invincible after specifically absorbing something in V-Trigger 2. He's banned. They've just banned the character outright, and this was on the 30th. This was 2 days ago in the morning where they announced this, and they haven't said anything after that. And everybody's like, yo, you could just like ban, if you really want to, you could just ban V-Trigger 2, even though people who've been playing Street Fighter are fully used to hitbox, hurtbox fuckery. Like, we've dealt with this for years. Third Strike is still a game that people play competitively. Like, think about that for a minute. I mean, fuck, man. Q gets thrown vulnerability frames just by crouching. Like, regardless, they've banned the character and haven't said anything after it. So, sorry, Urian players who might have wanted to compete in the Challenger series. That's kind of out to pick a secondary. Sorry, pick your pocket character, because you're not allowed to play Urian. And they haven't walked back on this statement, which I find pretty alarming. Like, I bring this up because, one, it's it's a big company, Gfinity, doing a big tournament and making a pretty, I want to say, blinded move from how the fighting game community works and people who enjoy fighting games, how people want to engage with fighting games works. And I don't want to call them out specifically because I've seen a lot of companies have basically very little experience in the fighting game community and the fighting game realm. They don't understand how things work. So this to me is just one of many tone-deaf decisions made by a larger company that just doesn't have experience or anyone on board. I don't think they talked to anyone in the fighting game community before they made this decision. They might have saw something and just went, nope, throw it out. They saw Weed's tweet and they said, oh boy, this is put an X on Yuri and he's broken, when in all actuality that's not the case, man. It ain't so. So I just want to give a little heads up to if you happen to run a big esports company and you don't have anyone on your fighting game team or anyone who is like that you can like call or talk to when it comes to running and operating fighting game tournaments, maybe you should call someone first. Find a Discord and just ask a general question, please, because this is just it comes off as tone deaf. I know you're trying to do good and support the communities, and that's great. I love that. I love when big companies pour money into the community. I love it. This is a good thing, but actions like this are so tone deaf to what we've always been about. I just want to give a little highlight to that. So, suffice to say, strong Urian players are not invited to the Challenger Series. So that would mean that Nemo is not Alienware, or not Alienware. He's what now? Well, he wrote these articles when he was Alienware. Regardless, Nemo. Oh no, he's still I know why I thought, because he just started working for Square Enix, but he's still Alienware. Nemo wrote an article series kind of a while back, but they've just been translated by Shura. So if you want to see what Nemo has to say about a training regime, or from what we talked about earlier, living as a working gamer, so this really digs into how to balance your life and how do you explain to people. And I kind of related to this one in particular when he describes being a working gamer. He talks about his first day at work where he's like, well, I play games professionally, and his boss is like, why didn't you learn golf? And that to me rings, that one hits home for me personally, as someone who works a 9-to-5 job and has said like, yeah, play fighting games. And it's like, we don't understand any of that shit that you're talking about, but it's good. It ends on like a good note, and it is both of these articles are good reads. I highly recommend reading through those if you have to find yourself in a position of being a 9-to-5er, but also maybe want some fighting game experience as well. Or if you're trying to work in how you work your practice regime, like all of this stuff is good information because he's still a top player. Like, dude does work, dude puts in the work obviously with the game, and he excels quite well. I mean, just look back, where did he place in Evo Japan? Down the list, Control F, no, he's 25th. So he made top 32 Evo Japan, and like, this is a dude who like just started a new job. So like, come on, dude knows how to do that work-life balance. Get on that. All right, next topic I want to bring up, just because it was something that was posted to the subreddit, and I love it. This is a critique of Street Fighter the movie. If you haven't watched this movie and you're a fan of Street Fighter, I just highly recommend watching it, because it's kind of brutal in what they talk about for this movie. It's fair criticism, but also the Street Fighter movie, I'm sorry, is just, it's a good romp. If you like to laugh at, if you like good bad movies, it's one of the better ones. It's just good fun time and a very fun and good adaptation. And this critique is a good breakdown. But the real reason why I wanted to bring this up It's because it wasn't until recently. Oh, by the way, like, go watch this movie. Like, I may quote this movie pretty often on just this podcast alone. So for that reason alone, I would recommend watching this movie. If you want to be in on the in-jokes, if you want to know what it means, why I retired after being the King of Thorn. Regardless, watch this movie. It's a very good movie. And also, maybe if you don't have the time, if you don't want to do that, watch this 15-minute critique of it, because it's a pretty good breakdown of exactly what goes wrong here critically. And it's a fun critique of it. That's on the Douchebag Cinema channel, and link will be shared below. But the real reason why I want to bring this up is because I'm going to bring it down for a little bit. A little bit of sadness here. So one of the most commonly known facts about this movie is that it was actor Raul Julia's final movie. But it wasn't until recently where someone linked to me this little write-up by Mike Lawrence. I think you can follow him at Mike Lawrence Comedy or The Mike Lawrence on Twitter. And he writes, and I'm going to read this out because this was just something that kind of touched me personally. Raul Julia was diagnosed with an aggressive form of stomach cancer in the early 90s. He tried treating it to no avail, lost a significant amount of weight, and knew he was going to die soon. He was an in-demand actor, thanks to a blend of big-budget family movies and strong performances in independent films. He probably could have done whatever he wanted. Take that final bow and show the world one last time what a masterful performer he could be. So what project did he pick? Street Fighter the movie. It's a terrible movie. One of the first experience that I had, this is, again, Mike Lawrence talking. Lost my place. It's a terrible movie. One of the first experiences I had in theaters where I thought, that was fucking awful. It was my dad's money, but I felt like we all got ripped off. But then I thought this, as much as I do now, Raul Julia was great in it. He chewed up the scenery like it was buffet lobster. The guy was in horrible pain and still provided enough energy for two in his scenes with the lifeless Van Damme, and that's very true, very lifeless in this movie. I always wondered why, though. Why that movie? Wouldn't he want to go out in some kind of Oscar caliber work what his talent was meant for? Turns out his kids loved Street Fighter. That's it. He wanted to be the cool dad for his kids. His research for the movie was just hanging out with his children, playing hours upon hours of Street Fighter together. It was their favorite movie. And their pop was playing the final boss, the big bad M. Bison. It wasn't a cash grab. It wasn't a need to work to forget his problems. It was a final gift to the people that he loved. I guess the lesson is to do what you love until you can't. And remember the people that matter most. And don't read the Street Fighter Wikipedia page unless you want a good cry. I didn't know that about this movie. That kind of changes the whole perspective and the way that I think about it. And even reading through that, oh boy, that one kind of hits you in the gut. It's a very touching story. Again, Raul Julia's last performance, just a little homage to his kids, spending time with the people he loves. It's good stuff. How can you hate that movie now? If you've been hating on it in the past, stop it. Because guess what? It's good shit. Anyway, moving on to one of our final topics, which will lead into the question of the week. And this is a general but a question was posed to the sub of, I want to hear your stories about your character crisis. And so a lot of people spoke up. A lot of people provided some really interesting insights as to why they chose their character, why they play the character that they play. So maybe if you find yourself in a character crisis, if you want to read some good personal stories, I would recommend checking out this article. Or perhaps if you have a fun character crisis story, or are in a current character crisis, this could be fun to chat about and have a good back and forth with people here, because there's a lot of fun to be had in this thread. I think I haven't shared my story yet because there is no crisis. I play Zangief. If Zangief is in the game, I play him. That's the character crisis, is if Zangief isn't in the game. Which is why I'm having trouble with Dragon Ball FighterZ. Okay, so moving on to the question of the week, though, which is, I saw this, and I only bring this up, not by any one person, just was the question, posted this up a couple times, how do I pick up a new character? And I think this was a pretty main topic of discussion because fighting game Twitter was pretty much ablaze with people talking about, oh, you should pick a number of characters. There's no shame in picking a top tier. Change characters, like play to win. Saw a lot of that on fighting game Twitter, which I agree with most of it. That's fine. Street Fighter V, it's not that difficult to just pick up a new character, but it can be difficult to master a new character. So the question posed to the sub many times was, how do I pick up a new character? I mean, step one, very easily, anti-airs. Learn what buttons you press or specials that you got to do to get your anti-airs off. Like, step one. Then, what are your normals? What are your best pokes? How far do they reach? How much damage can you get off of a straight poke if canceled into V-trigger or any kind of special? Then try and learn some bread and butter combos. Learn your, like a light hit confirm, a hit confirm that you would get on a particular wake up. Go back at that meaty calculator, figure out what your meaties are, or better yet, just YouTube search some high level people. I mean, if you don't know who plays your character, look at that Evo Japan list. That was the first thread mentioned on this podcast. See who's playing them, because it lists out who played what character. Search them on YouTube or search them through CFN. See how they play. See how they play against different characters, and just try and glean. What are they doing in this instance when they knock someone down? What are they going for when they have their opponent in the corner? Why does Cammy press standing light kick so often when pressuring their opponent? What's that all about? And that's like some pretty basic level stuff. Now, to get deep into a character, you gotta start learning about matchups, and that stuff takes time, but like the quick and easy general thing to do, anti-airs, bread and butters, spacing, like, you can pretty much learn that all at once. You can pretty much learn that in a day. Then move on to meaties. That'll come with time, a little bit just to remember, because you have to think, well, I knocked him down with this, I do a dash up, stand hard kick, or whatever the hell it is. That stuff comes with a little bit of time, but regardless, that's like, think about that stuff later, because meaty setups, and then start thinking about, okay, here's like your big damage, like here's where all the magic happens, right? Like here's your Laura shenanigans after all that, or here's your Ibuki bullshit that's going on, or Armika. Well, Armika's corner setups is kind of like her whole game, but regardless, that's kind of the steps that you take. And there are resources. There's a whole bunch of stuff on the sub already. There's all of the character discussions. All that stuff is archived, and there's a ton of video footage saved in those character discussions. So all of that stuff is in the wiki. It's pretty well kept. We like to keep that pretty well. And also, this hasn't been enacted yet. I think Quasi is working on this currently at the recording of this podcast, I believe. But we're going to set up a button, much similar to, if you're looking at the front page of our Street Fighter, you'll notice over here in the corner it says Artist Alley. There will be a separate button. I don't know if it's going to be here or somewhere else, or how he's going to do it. But there will be a separate button that you can press to search for tech, which will search all of the guides and lab work, and then after that it'll set you up to search all the guides. You can just add the qualifier of your character name. Like if I wanted to see all the Zangief tech, you would press that button, it would set you up for all the tech, and then in the search bar just type in Zangief or Geef. Probably have to do 2 searches if you want to see all the information, just because Reddit's search engine is bad. We're trying to make it better. We're limited here. The search engine is very bad, but we classify everything as guides and lab work, so all of the guides and lab work that have been posted for Zangief will be available. So there's really, I mean, there are ways to miss the stuff, and there will be archives from years, but you can search by most recent. So by that fact, you should be able to look from the top-down level of what is the most relevant, because a lot of stuff changed for Zangief in particular, not so much for other characters, but for him in particular, you really got to learn the new stuff. But regardless, we're setting that up, so if you want to learn a character, again, anti-airs, bread and butters, where you want to stand in the neutral, or what you're capable of in the neutral, and then get into setups and stuff. And if you want to look up guides, we'll have that button for you probably after this podcast is posted. I'll have to crack the whip and cut Quasi off from food so he gets the work done, but that's about it. Anyway, that is the question of the week, so that leads us into our next segment. Everybody's favorite segment, and certainly my favorite segment this week, is the Shitpost of the Week! Shitpost of the Week! This one is pretty good, and it's full. It is chock full of muscle power! That's right, folks. The Shitpost of the Week goes to Meathamsky. He took inspiration from Evo Japan and did a incredible design of Zangief wearing a big cup noodle costume, and it is glorious. It gives all glory and honor to Mother Russia, and I love it. I'm not. This is a very high quality shitpost. This is shitpost, very high quality shitpost. And I don't know, it just brings me joy to look at. Like, the look on the Zangief's face is really something to gaze upon. It is glorious, and for that reason, Meathamsky, you are this week's shit poster of the week. So congratulations, you did it! Muscle power for you! That's the one I meant to press, because that's how a soundboard works. Sometimes you fuck it up, folks. Sometimes you get shitty on the soundboard. Regardless, that's pretty good. I like this thoroughly. I recommend checking that one out in the comments below. It's so good. He's got the little muscle explosion coming out the bottom of the cup. It's very good. It's very good. All right, folks. So that brings us to our final segment. A little bit of FGC history. This one, a little different, a little departure from what we're used to. Kind of want to give a little bit of an homage here to Infiltration as this year's Evo Japan winner. So I dug through his history of Evo Grand Finals, and I posted all of them, all of his Evo Grand Finals. So this goes through this is Evo Japan, or no, I'm sorry, Evo World, Street Fighter between Infiltration and GamerB. This goes through, that was 2012 SFXT, when it was a 2v2 tournament. And then in 2013, where it was just went back to singles in SFXT, and then Evo 2016, and then Evo 2018 Japan. Those were all of his grand finals appearances. And fun fact, he wins all of them. But the one I'm going to share first, Evo 2012. This is pretty much a slaying. In fact, Infiltration was really on the top of his game. He was the top of the world at Evo 2012. This is like the year of the demon. I think I counted if I can remember correctly, the demon count on this. In grand finals alone, 4 raging demons on GamerB's Adon, which really impressive, and it's a showstopper, and it would really like cemented his place of, oh no, he's the champion. Like, very clearly he is the champion, and this is why. But also, a fun thing about 2012 is that it sets up a fun little player story for 2015, when it was Infiltration and GamerB in losers finals, where it was a lot of people's. This is like a divisive match. I didn't include this one because it wasn't a grand finals appearance, but it was GamerB and Infiltration in losers finals of Evo 2015, where GamerB played Elena. And they went on for quite some time, one of the longest sets that there is, and yeah, it just sets up a good storyline for that. Now, of course, GamerB goes on to win that one. I believe we talked about that on this podcast, and we haven't. I should talk about that because of how divisive it is. A lot of people hate Elena and her healing, but I think that watching this 2012 and then maybe skipping forward ahead to 2015 could be fun. But also, I just wanted to bring up, Infiltration does not lose when he gets in grand finals of Evo. If you are listening and you find yourself in the seat at grand finals Evo, 2018, Evo World 2018, and Infiltration is sitting next to you, your chances are low. He is 1 for 100%. When it comes, here's your bullshit sports math. Infiltration always wins in grand finals, which is kind of astounding, even in Street Fighter Cross Tekken, which a lot of people have never seen before. I realized after posting this to the sub, people haven't watched that game played, and it kind of reminded me of how interesting the 2v2 tournaments were. Ended up being like super not a great thing for the FGC, but from an entertainment perspective, I thought it was kind of fun. So check out all of Infiltration's grand finals appearances. It's watching him dominate the way that he has been enjoyable, and I think it's cool to kind of track his progression as a player, and kind of track how he played, how he approaches games over the years, and it's a good little chronology of Infiltration in his grand final. So anyway, that will wrap it. That's a show, folks. Coming up on an hour, I'm going to close it off. Hard cut right here. This has been another episode of the RSF Radio. Again, I'm your host, Joe Monday. You can find me at Super Joe Monday on Twitter, or you can tweet at the R Street Fighter official Twitter, which is at RedditSF. Either of them, way to reach the podcast. All of the links talked about in this podcast will be posted in the description of whatever you choose to listen to podcasts, be it iTunes, be it what's the one someone called out of service recently. I was like, just put in you might have to put in the RSS feed to find it on whatever, on like your off-brand podcast listening tools, apps, whatever it be. But also on Google Play, also the YouTube archives. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below, and don't forget to rate and review I'm like saying that as if I'm like super serious about it. This is just like a rundown podcast, so just if you want to rate and review the podcast, please do. On the iTunes, don't give a fuck about that other shit. No, all the podcasts I hear say that, of give it a review on iTunes. So I'm just going to say it. And I'm going to keep saying that until there are a bunch of reviews. And I don't really care how many stars you give it. Give it 2 stars. I don't care. 1 stars. For how many hours that I recorded a podcast in a room alone. Anyway, folks, that is a wrap. That is a show. Again, catch us every Thursday it's mostly Thursday nights, but a lot of people catch it on Friday mornings. But anyway, folks, this is another show. And we'll see you guys again next week. And as always, folks, don't forget. Oh, come on, soundboard, motherfucker. Anyway, folks, have a good night. And don't forget. Come on, soundboard.
Muscle power fully open.
That's a podcast. Take care, folks. Till next week.